Hi, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Lexi. I studied abroad with AIFS back in fall of 2022 at Maynooth University in Maynooth, Ireland. And today I am here with Jolie. Jolie, do you want to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your program?
I'm Jolie Brausch. I just got back from studying abroad with AIFS. I was in Budapest, Hungary at Corvinus University. I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, but I do go to school at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm doing a double major in business, marketing focus, and psychology. So that fit really well with AIFS connection in Budapest with Corvinus University.
Amazing. So let's think back to before you studied abroad when you were kind of still just like thinking about it. Was there an exact moment in your mind where you were like, okay, I'm definitely going to study abroad and like it kind of felt real for the first time? And like, what was that feeling for you?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to study abroad going into college. I love traveling. So it was kind of just a build up to the moment where it was finally like confirmed. I knew in spring of 2023, so about a year before I went, that I was going to try to do a study abroad, and I started looking. And I wanted to go in the fall originally just because some plans at school fell through, so I thought fall would be more optimal. But the timeline was too rushed with getting my passport renewed, getting my visa approved. So I decided to go in the spring. And fast forward to the fall of 2023 still, and I went to Chicago to get my visa. And after that finally went through and came back to me in January, which was cutting it a little bit close.
Mhm.
But once that finally came back, it was for sure that I was going because I was finally approved for it. AIFS had approved and accepted me a little bit earlier, but it was kind of just the last minute nerves of like, what if this doesn't go through? What if it's held up? So when I finally got that back and got my passport back, that was like just a feeling of relief. I think that it was finally confirmed and happening, but also excitement mixed in with a little bit of nervousness because I was like, shoot, now I have to pack. I
Yeah.
have to prepare for everything. But I think it was mostly excitement that it was like finally happening.
Yeah. I remember all the different like forms you have to fill out and all the
Yeah,
deadlines. And yeah, it's a lot. So when you finally like submit the last one, like it goes through, it is such a relief. And you're like, now I can actually like just look forward to it and like start planning for it now that all like the paperwork and forms have like been completed.
exactly.
Yeah, I also had to go through getting my passport too. And yeah, that's a whole process in and of itself. So I feel your pain with that one.
Yes, but it's absolutely worth it.
Oh
It
yeah.
was just it was a lot at first, but also AIFS helps so much with like step by step stuff
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it made it easier. And I think that was one of the benefits of going through this company, at least for me, that I experienced throughout this whole process, because it is kind of a long one to lead up to leaving.
Yeah, definitely. I remember like on the website it said like all the deadlines and like what you need to have done by this certain date and stuff like that, which was really
Yeah.
helpful because I'm bad with deadlines. So like having it like clearly laid out for me, I was like, okay, now I know what I have to like work on next, which definitely I
Yeah.
think is a benefit. Now thinking to when you were on your program, there's a lot of different kind of academic lifestyles and just kind of different ways that you go about living in this new country. Did you notice that there was any kind of focus on like climate change or like any green initiatives when you were abroad?
I would say that the main part that I noticed was the public transportation options in Budapest. I could not speak more highly of it. And wherever we went, like throughout Europe, we were like, oh, this isn't Budapest
Mhm.
transportation. Just
Yeah.
because they have metro lines that connect the city really well underground, which makes it super easy to get around without even having to worry about cars.
Mhm.
There's buses, there's tram lines above ground that are all very on time, which I know I struggle with in the States is that public transportations are not usually on time.
Yeah.
Typically, we're running behind, or
Uh,
there's just a complete lack thereof
yeah.
of public transportation options. And then aside from that, there's also a lot of bikes for rent and like the Lime scooters. We used a decent amount to get around the city of Budapest, which was super helpful. So I think that's the main one that I noticed overall. Some little like fun thing that we did, I took a marketing class. Just intro to marketing, I believe. And we did this project where we had to like find sustainable alternatives or different green initiatives. I know it's not exactly the city of Budapest doing that, but I think that it's interesting to see how it was like weaved into my different classes throughout.
Yeah, no, that is really interesting. And I also agree, when I was in Ireland, there's a lot of public transportation, which is very nice. And it is mostly on time too, which
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely different from the US in that kind of way. So how did you feel being outside of the US and in another country? Kind of, how did you feel about your own identity being in this new environment? Was it a bit of a culture shock? Did it kind of like not really feel any different? Like, what was your experience like?
It wasn't as much of a culture shock as I expected it to be. I
Mhm.
feel like I had prepared myself pretty well for being like, okay, this is going to be completely different
Yeah.
from Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Like,
Yeah.
it is Europe, it's a whole new world over there in a
Mhm.
sense. But I think that it didn't hit me as hard as I thought.
Mhm.
Everyone was super welcoming when I first got there, and I believe that like the first 48 hours are probably like some of the most pivotal moments while you're there of like good experiences you have at the beginning or not. So I
Mhm.
had a really good first 48 hours while I was there, which set me off on like a good tone. I think
Yeah.
for the rest of it, I've also been very lucky to travel a decent amount in
Mhm.
my like 20 years being alive.
Mhm.
So I think that I have that in my corner with just
Mhm.
being used to the changes and the differences throughout. But I think what's really important for like future students is to just come in with an open mindset because I think that if you went into it or if I would have gone into it with like I expect Budapest to be exactly like this
Mhm.
or I expect this to be happening, then I would have been maybe not disappointed but a little thrown off
Yeah.
by it just being different. So I think that that was super important for me coming in with that. Another thing to your point about being like just outside the US as an American, personally, I know there's a lot of stereotypes against just Americans in general, pretty much
Yeah.
wherever you go, unfortunately. And you definitely stand out as an American because Europeans have their own sense of style. They have their way of life. They have this completely different way of living than we do in the US.
Uh-huh.
And that can be a little intimidating at times, I think I found,
Mhm.
just knowing that you kind of stand out and knowing that these people probably have these stereotypes or beliefs about you in general, even if they don't even know you.
Yeah.
I think that the way to like combat that is just knowing that you also have stereotypes about a lot of people everywhere and
Mhm.
knowing that you need to try to be more open and accepting and just live with the fact because you're not going to change being American.
It's an experience that you won't really understand until I feel like you go abroad and you are put in that situation. Even when like I think that I would be like blending in like perfectly with the crowd, like no, people could still tell that I was American,
Yep.
which is really funny. I'm like, how can you tell? But they just know. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think just being comfortable and being like, yes, like that's who I am, and like you really can't change that, but just being respectful of like this new environment you're in is really the most that you can do, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think there's certain things that they would like expect us to do as
Mhm.
let's say they're perceiving us as like loud, rowdy American
Yeah.
college students. Just try not to fit into that
Yeah.
stereotype. I
Yeah.
think like there's a lot of ways that you can combat that just with how you carry yourself throughout
Mhm.
the day, throughout the school day, going out at night. There's a lot of different ways you can carry yourself to
Yeah,
like frame a better light than what people think.
definitely. Did you also notice if there was any like major language barriers? Like, was that complicated for you or was it easy to adapt to?
I think it was a mix because Hungarian is a very unique and
Mhm.
different language. There's not many similarities to Hungarian as there are like the typical Romance languages like
Yeah.
French and Italian, where you can kind of guess the words or
Hmm.
guess the meanings. Like you cannot do that with Hungarian.
Yeah.
Well, currently, English is the second language over there. It
Uh-huh.
used to be different probably like 15, 20 years ago, but it is primarily English now. So
Okay.
that helped a lot because I personally did not take a Hungarian class.
Mhm.
There is one that Corvinus offers, it's like Hungarian for beginners, but for me, it didn't transfer over into the credits that I would have needed. And I don't know if it would have been a waste of credits because I'm sure I would have used the Hungarian, but it
Yeah,
wasn't worth
yeah.
it for me to take it. But I do know that my classmates who did take it thoroughly enjoyed that class and it
Nice.
did help them.
Uh-huh.
But English is becoming more and more common and more popular. And Budapest is also growing as a more, not touristy, but a bigger attraction. So I think they know that they need to adapt some things to English, which was a huge benefit for all the American students studying there.
No, that definitely helps to be able to at least like be able to get by and like get through your
Yeah.
daily life, even if it isn't the first language.
Yeah.
But that does help if it is becoming the second, definitely for people who don't speak Hungarian. So yeah, I think that that's a great experience for living in a country where English isn't the first language.
Yeah.
And now going all the way back to before you even studied abroad, right before your trip, when you had to kind of prepare and pack everything, what did you pack that you felt was necessary? And what did you kind of realize, like when you were abroad, that you were like, oh, I definitely did not need to pack this, or like, I really wish that I brought this with me?
Yeah, so I made like I have friends who have studied abroad and they created like a whole list for packing, but they
Yeah.
went for a year, so they had spring and fall.
Hmm.
So I cut that in half, took the spring list and then kind of worked through it. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, will I wear this or will I not wear this?
Yeah.
And that's how I started packing. And I
Hmm.
kind of just laid everything out and was like, that's not gonna work. That's not
Yeah.
gonna work. I would highly recommend doing a capsule closet type of wardrobe, which if people don't know what that is, it's basically when you can have like three pairs of pants and three shirts, but make a mix
Yeah.
of outfits out of that.
Hmm.
I would highly recommend doing that because I can't tell you the amount of times I rewore jeans or shirts, but just like flipped. Limit the amount of clothes you bring because I also did a lot of shopping while I was over there
Hmm.
because shopping in Europe is just, from what I found, a little bit cheaper than here for
Yeah.
still higher quality clothes. And also, like, you can guess at the weather when you're going to be over there, but it totally ranges. So if you need something, there's probably a store less than 10 minutes away on public transportation where
Yeah.
you could find that for a decent price. So
Hmm.
I would say bring less clothes than you think you need because you can always go and buy more and you're probably going to.
Yeah.
And then another thing that really saved me that I did is I packed a travel backpack like
Nice.
within one of my checked bags because I knew that I was going to be doing traveling on the weekend. So I thought
Yeah.
that would be helpful. But I also knew that I was probably going to come back with more than I left with.
Hmm.
So I was able to like take that bag out of my checked bag and pack another bag.
Yeah.
So I went over with, or I came back with one more bag than I left with, but I
Mhm.
didn't have to buy an extra suitcase. I didn't have to ship anything home. So I think that was super helpful for me. And that, yeah, I mean, like the typical things that people tell you, don't bring too many hair tools like
Uh-huh.
curling irons, blow dryers. You can buy them there for cheap
Hmm.
and they work just fine.
Yeah.
I think those were like the main points that I could think of for packing.
Yeah, no, those are really great tips. I had someone else talk about the capsule closet.
Yeah.
That, yeah, I think that that's a really great idea, especially when you can just mix and match. It just makes it so much easier, and
Yeah.
that's a really great tip about the backpack. I definitely wish that I did that looking back because I definitely left with a lot more stuff than I
Yeah.
came with, and I had to like get rid of some of my stuff too, which was sad, but I just literally had no
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
That's great advice, and especially knowing that you can buy stuff when you're there. Like you don't
Yeah.
need to bring every single thing from home. Like you will have the opportunity to get stuff abroad. You will be able to. You don't have to like bring your whole closet or anything like
Yeah.
that. They have like the basics. If you have like a specific like shirt or like maybe like you said like maybe makeup product or like hair tool like maybe like one or two that you know that maybe they won't have in that specific, then yes, you can bring that. But
Yeah.
overall, they will have the basic stuff kind of no matter where you go.
Yeah, and it does like for makeup and stuff. I don't really wear too much makeup, but
Mhm.
I brought like my essentials just because
Yes.
in Budapest with the language barrier, if they didn't have like the big stores, I had a really
Yeah.
hard time translating and trying to figure out what I
Mhm.
needed here and what I needed there. So
Yeah.
makeup, I'd say like bring your essentials.
Yeah.
And same with other things. If you can't live without, do that. But
Just
most
bring.
of the time, if you're like, I don't know if I'll use this or not, just leave it.
Yeah. So I have one last question for you, Jolie. What is a piece of advice you would give someone thinking about studying abroad?
I would say to absolutely go do it and push
Mhm.
yourself out of your comfort zone
Yeah.
because not only will the place, like, I think for me, the people made the trip.
Yeah.
And I went back and forth a few times between deciding on either hit recognize program, which is like AIFS, where I'm going completely through something else and not through my
Uh-huh.
school, or going through the school.
Hmm.
And I am glad that I went outside because I was able to meet 18 other people on my program, maybe
Yeah.
17, I don't remember, who are
Mm,
from all over the US,
yeah.
completely different schools, different states, different stories than mine probably would be from Pitt. You just get to meet so many new people and experience so many new adventures that you never thought you'd ever be able to,
Yeah.
that I would not trade anything for the last 4 months of being in Budapest. And I will tell that to absolutely anybody who
Yeah.
asks. But I would say that if you're hesitant on studying abroad just because you think that it's going to be hard or it's going to be a new experience that you think you're not ready for, go for it.
Yeah.
There are endless resources you can talk to. There are so many people who have done it before you. Like, it is an amazing experience that I would highly recommend.
Yeah, totally. That's great advice. I think just going for it, and I also agree, stepping out of your school and being able to meet other people. I definitely agree that the people really made the trip for me as well. And I got to meet a bunch of people through my AIFS group from all over the United States, and we still do keep in contact. And
Mhm.
you really just will meet these people that you will have not had the chance to meet any other way. It's so great to meet people, different backgrounds, different states, like all over the place. And yeah, it's an experience you can't get with anything else except for studying abroad.
Yeah, and I would also say to like branch away from the typical study abroad spots
Yeah.
because Florence is gorgeous, Rome stunning, like no
Yeah,
hate to
yeah.
any of those places. But being able to be in Budapest, like when people would ask me where I'm going and I say Budapest, they were like, why there? Like,
Yeah.
it's different. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
But I would highly recommend trying a completely new city too, because you can visit Florence on the weekend, you
exactly.
can visit somewhere else,
Yeah.
but I would try like a new place.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you can always go on vacation or go for the weekend to those places,
Yeah.
but being able to live in a country that isn't like as touristy, I feel
Mm.
like, is definitely so unique and so special. Yeah, I think being able to travel to other places like on the weekends, you can still visit all over the place. But
Right.
you don't necessarily need to live there for 3 months to be able to
Exactly.
get to know it. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Jolie, for all of your amazing insight and advice. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And thank you.